back to another great episode of the Red, White, and You Show with the military medium. Today's episode is being sponsored by Trailblazing Communications, tools for taking back your life. Today, I have with us a fun guest. You may know him as CQ on Pop Culture Warrior. Micheal joins us today talking about everything pop culture and his everything else in between. Micheal, welcome to the Red, White, and You Show, buddy.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. For those that may not know you, share a little bit who you are.
Sure. It's a loaded question. It's a very big question, but with broad strokes, I originally from New York City. That's where I was born and raised. And after 9/11, because I was a senior in high school when that happened, I immediately joined the military, joined the Army, signed up, did infantry, did airborne, and got stationed over in Italy, the 173rd Airborne.
Nice.
Did a couple of combat tours with them, a tour into Iraq, a tour into Afghanistan. During my second combat tour, I was shot 5 times.
Oh man!
During combat operations, and nearly died, and eventually was airlifted out and ended up at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in DC, and spent about 2 years in Walter Reed. I got 40 something surgeries. Had to learn to walk again, physical therapy, occupational therapy, all these different things. And after about 2 years there, was eventually medically retired, and kind of wandered for a bit after that, because that was retired in 2007, and for a couple of years just kind of wandered, and eventually got into doing stuff with nonprofits and doing stuff with disabled veterans, and a lot of bad years and then some good years. And then, eventually kind of just got into this track of like, I'm going to try everything. I dabbled in golf. I dabbled in racquetball. I got my scuba diving license. I dabbled in a lot of different things, and then eventually found my way to doing stand-up comedy. And did that for a little while and had some success with it. And then that led to what my most current thing is, which is Pop Culture Warrior, a weekly live streamed talk show / entertainment show / interview show / podcast. It's a bit of everything.
Right.
It's somewhere between like a personal vlog and an interview podcast, and it's everything in, it's like pop culture. It's all and everything, all combined. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing now, and I'm loving it.
Cool. Do you find now, obviously, do you find part of it is part of maybe considering it a bit of therapy in what you do, as far as with the show and everything else?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Everything that I've done has been kind of a part of like the healing process.
Sure.
When you're removed from service, a lot of people, they do their time and then they get out, and like, oh, I miss it and whatever.
Yeah.
But when it's taken from you, you didn't get to leave on your terms.
Yeah.
It really leaves this kind of gaping hole in your soul.
Yeah.
And so for years I was trying to fill it, and sometimes with bad stuff, and sometimes better stuff. And so every step that I've done has been about kind of filling that void and trying to find my purpose, and trying to connect, and trying to do all these things. And so really, with like when I started doing comedy, that was a huge opportunity to kind of like spin my story and let me get to tell it the way I want to tell it, and find the humor in some of the really messed up things that has happened to me. And that was awesome. And then obviously doing the show now, it's being able to connect with an audience. It's being able to share a passion that I have that has been like a personal passion, but now getting to connect with the audience and share it and laugh and have fun. And it's been great.
So where have you always been kind of more of a vocal guy, or somebody that was always would rather joke about something, or even if it's something sucky, or when you're handed, you always, if life hands you a shit sandwich, you got to take a bite, or were you always the guy that would kind of, well, at least we don't have this, or it's like, um,
Yeah,
were you
yeah,
one of the ones that always at least tried to put a humorous spin on it, try to make it a little bit better than what it actually is?
yeah. No, I grew up kind of the class clown, so I've always had a penchant for humor and attention seeking, maybe. And then in the military, yeah, I was the guy that like, you bitch like everybody else does,
Right.
when it sucks, but you embrace the suck, you learn to embrace it. But yeah, like I was always trying to find a humorous slant on it, and always I've always been a bit self-deprecating. Like
Sure.
I enjoy being the butt of the joke as much as having the joke and saying the joke. Now, when I got injured and I went through some tough times and dealing with PTSD and things, like I really lost a lot of that in myself. I
Mm,
didn't find the humor in things anymore. I was depressed. I had anxiety and wasn't socializing and
mm,
isolating. And so for many years, I lost that part of myself.
mm.
And so it was through therapy and through all these different things and medications and
Yeah.
getting out and reconnecting and things, and after many years of being lost, being able to find that part of myself again, and first connecting with others, and then little by little kind of coming out of that hole you dig yourself in,
Sure.
and then eventually leading to comedy, where I've regained that sense of humor about things, and getting to share it with others, and yes, it's kind of been up and down, right? Because it was part of me, and then I kind of
Right.
lost that, and then over the years, kind of slowly rebuilding that, and refining that in myself, and honing it into a weapon almost, that humor, and using it.
Right.
So it's been,
Well, it can be a very powerful resiliency tool, right? It's like, it depends what we want to use it for. And, I've heard people say like, oh, you always got to make everything a joke. You can never take anything. But, at the same time, is that if that's how we diffuse things by making a joke out of it. I remember personally working with some emergency responders, first responders. And because in that world, when they go to a scene or whatever, it can be very tragic. And to deal with that tragedy, and the same with soldiers, we know this in the infantry world, especially, like half the time you're dealing with sucky stuff.
oh yeah,
And it's like, you have two choices. Either you can whine and complain about it, or number one, you can poke fun about it and put sometimes it might be a morbid spin, but at the same time, it's trying to invoke a different tone of emotion.
sure.
So it's not so doom and gloom, right?
Yeah, we can. I mean, especially combat guys, infantry guys, we can have a very morose sense of humor, very dark, dry sense of humor. It is a coping mechanism. It
Yeah.
is a thing where I go out on a patrol today and I see one of my buddies shot or blown up in a Humvee,
Yeah.
and I'm supposed to finish that mission, go back to the base, do whatever I got to do, and then go out on a patrol tomorrow.
Right.
And how can you do that without, and again, not laughing at it, my God,
Right.
no,
Right. Right.
but having this sort of mentality where you have to break from that thought that like, okay, wow, that could have been me, or
Right.
whatever. You have to have that dark sense of humor, that dry sense of humor. When I was in the hospital for 2 years, we used to sit in the cafeteria and play who's got it worse, and like compare his missing leg to his missing arm, and the guy that's got the big dent in the guy with the
Sure.
burned
Sure.
face, and like we used to laugh about it, like you, because in those moments when you're put into the most traumatic, the most horrible situations, like you can laugh about it or you can cry about it.
Right.
And so for a lot of us, you just kind of have to laugh it off and shrug it off. It's
Right.
it's uncomfortable, I'm sure, for people that don't understand, but
Right.
it's, like
Right.
you said, it's a coping mechanism.
It's
It's
a
a way to
coping.
be
There you
resilient.
go. There you go.
Yeah.
Coping mechanism. Great. Great term. Um, so let's shift gears a little bit. Talk about pop culture warrior. Now, before we get into that, though, what's up with the CQ thing? Now, I get charge of quarters. Like, is that reference to that, or is that, or
Kind of. Kind of. No, the CQ moniker, man. It's something, you go into the military, you get nicknames. You don't, very rarely do you get to choose your nickname.
right.
So funny enough, CQ honestly dates back to basic training. So before the CQ of charge of quarters, it was, my last name is not something easy to pronounce. It's very
Okay.
long, lots of letters, and but the most prominent two being C and Q. And I just remember I think we were doing rifle training, and I was in the little foxhole, and I'm taking my shots, and the drill sergeant standing over me, and he's like trying to scream at me about something, and he's like, fuck it, CQ, I'm calling you CQ from now on. And I hate it. I really did hate it. And so it followed me through basic, and I was like, all right, once basics over, it's done. I can go
Right.
back to being me.
Right.
And then went into infantry school, which is just extended basic for infantry guys. So that followed me through infantry school, and then I'm like, all right, cool, that's done. It won't follow me. Went to airborne school, but with like 6 guys from my basics, so they started calling me CQ, which then it spread. And then I'm like,
Spreads.
all right, I got to get through airborne school. Got to my duty station. I'm like, all right, cool, that's done. It's over. Well, one guy from airborne school followed me to my duty station. So I had about a month where nobody called me CQ. And then he says it one day, and then boom, like wildfire, it
Right.
spreads. And it just, it stayed with me my whole military career. And then when I got out, I said, okay, that's done. I'm back to being Mike, or Mike or whatever. And just through, social media, God bless social media. One
Right.
day, a couple guys hit me up on like Facebook, CQ, what's up, and everything. And then next thing you know, everybody's calling me CQ. So I accepted it. I
You
adopted it.
embraced it, huh?
I embraced it. Yep. You got to laugh or cry, right? Laugh or cry about it. So I laughed it off. And now it's
It's
become,
kind of catchy though. It's got,
yeah,
and it's a good story. It's like, I know it's one of
yeah,
those things like,
advertising,
yeah,
you
yeah,
do, we turn it into a lifestyle. It's
there you go.
almost, it's almost a character that I play at this point, where it's like me, I'm just this normal guy, but CQ, he's larger than life. He's this
Right.
character that people talk about. So yeah, so I kind of play it up, and it is what it
Absolutely.
is.
Why not? Why not? Right. I love it. I love that. So pop culture warrior. How long have you um, been doing the whole page bit and doing the streaming of the show?
Yeah, yeah,
And then with it, have you also, I guess it's a two-part question. And I know that you focus a lot, well, really on anything but mostly pop culture and everything. But have you found that you're connecting to an audience of veterans as well?
yeah. So how, to answer all the parts of the question, we officially, our first episode was like in February of this year, so
Oh,
February of
wow.
2020.
Okay.
So it's a slightly less than a year old. Um, it had been in the works for many months prior to that, but I do feel like I've been doing the show forever,
Right.
because this is just me, but
Right.
now I have an audience. Like I've talked to friends the same way that I talk to my audience is the way I've talked to my friends for years.
Right.
So this is really just the idea is that the camera's on now compared to,
Right.
I feel like I've been doing it, 10, 20 years. Although the show has only been about a year.
Right.
Now, I was very lucky because how it came about was I was doing comedy, and WTF Nation Radio is a radio station dedicated to military and veterans. It's obviously got a huge following. It's for everybody, but
Right.
obviously their
Right.
target audience is military community. And so they have a bunch of different shows. And one day they reached out to me, and they're like, "Hey man, you're a vet. You're doing this thing. You're gaining some traction as a comedian, and you're doing these big things. We'd love to have you on as a guest." And so I came on, and much like this, I did a thing, and
Right.
we talked for an hour and we're laughing, we're having a great time. They said, oh, that was awesome. And we'd love to have you back another time. And I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. Nobody cares about
Right.
me or my, well, I'm nobody.
Right.
And then like a year went by and then they reached out again. They're like, hey man, it's been like a year. Do you want to come on again? And I was like,
Right.
wow, okay, sure. Came
Mhm.
on a second time. We had a blast. We're laughing it up. And like 5 times throughout the interview, they're like, oh man, you need a show. You need a show. And I was like, yeah, you're being nice. You're being
Yeah.
nice and you're
Yeah.
just, filling my head up. And when we finally were done, we were talking in private and the guys were like, we're serious, man. You should come on the station, pitch a show, like let's do it. And
Right.
I mean, I started really thinking about it, and next thing I know, I pitched them a show idea. I said, "You guys don't really have a pop culture, something that talks movies and video games and stuff." I said,
Yeah.
I could be the entertainment beat for your station, and they loved it. And next thing we have it, and
Nice.
we have gotten more done in this year than I thought would ever be possible with the show. Obviously, we're steadily building a following and a crowd and an audience, which is awesome. Everybody
Right.
feels like friends versus like just listeners. Like it's a
Sure.
community, and we've been super blessed to have some amazing interviews with some big because we've had a couple directors. I'd always planned on like, I'm fascinated by the entertainment industry. I'd
Sure.
love to talk to actors and directors. But in my head, it was going to be, people doing off Broadway or
Like little
people that,
indie films.
yeah, kickstarted their own movie.
Right.
And that's kind of how we started. And I was talking to comedians that are from the local DC, DMV area.
Sure.
And next thing you know, I do an interview with the director of the Outpost movie, Rod
Mm-hmm.
Lurie,
Mm-hmm.
and then an interview with a big podcaster, and then all of a sudden I'm doing an interview with Clark Gregg from the Avengers,
Yeah.
Agent Coulson from the Avengers.
Yeah.
I got to sit down with Louis Anderson, who's a legendary comedian.
Absolutely.
Matt Eisman from American Ninja Warrior.
Right.
So all these big guests, and it's like, holy crap, man! I'd never intended like to be doing this, but it's been going well.
It's kind of mind blowing because if you go back a number of years, I think the paradigm or the understanding of what podcasts are or what they provide, I think that persona that they're a little hokey or they're less than FM radio, right?
Sure.
And it really comes down to the pitch, right? It's like, you're trying to convey through an email, through their agent. But have you found this to be true? I got to ask you this.
Sure.
Have you found more since COVID hit that it's easier to reach directly out to the actor, director, or whatever? And we're talking, you brought up Rod because we had Rod on the show as well.
Oh,
yeah, and great guy. Is have you found that more of these people are answering this stuff themselves versus their publicist or their booker?
That's a great question. So to kind of answer that, I'll also say that, when I pitched this show, the first question they asked me is like, could you do this weekly? Could you talk about video games and movies weekly? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like Marvel, I could do just specifically on Marvel news comes out daily. I could fill a whole show. And then of course we launch and the very next month, COVID shuts everything down.
Right.
And I'm like, oh God, how do I fill a show about pop culture when movies are canceled,
Right.
video games are canceled, comic books were canceled? I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So we like the life of our show has been like trying to figure out how to fill air. But yeah, to your question, I've been surprised by certain people responding the way they've responded. I've had some success with publicists and a little success with managers and things like that. But I have to say our biggest guests that we've had have all been kind of reached person to person. And usually we've been fortunate with like Clark Gregg and with some of the others where it was like a friend of a friend knows them.
Right.
And they were like, hey, so-and-so is my cousin, like,
yeah.
and I love your show. You want me to ask if he'll be on the show? And I was, yes. The answer is always
Right.
yes. Yes, very much so. And with Rod, he was super cool. I mean, the guy is very active on social media. So like
Yes.
I just hit him up on social media and he's like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yep.
Like, so I do think that with so much free time, it's given people the
Yep.
opportunity to do more of these things that they typically wouldn't
Right.
do,
Right.
connect in ways they wouldn't typically connect. Um, but I've also found a bit of the opposite. Here's the weird part. When I really thought about it, I went, oh, COVID's going to free up all these actors, all
Yeah.
these comedians, all these people that typically work and don't have time. They're all free now. They're all sitting at home. Why
Yeah.
not connect on a
Right.
podcast
Right.
or something? And what I found is a lot of them started a YouTube channel. A lot of them
Yep.
started a podcast,
Yep.
which now they don't have that free time to do for somebody else. And the other part of it is for some actors and for some people, typically in your day, your day would be scheduled where, okay, I wake up, hit the gym, go film for a couple hours, and then like their nighttime would be free to do whatever they want. And that's when they would usually find that time to do something.
Right.
But because of COVID, all their schedules are completely upside down where,
Yeah.
they're taking meetings during the day, they're doing this call and they're bouncing around. So it's hard to find time because
Mm.
usually their time would be so structured and so scheduled well, but now it's all up in the air. Like they're doing meetings
Yeah.
at noon and they're doing calls at 2 and they're like it's
Yep.
just it's not it's actually hurt, I think, in some cases to nail people down to do
Mm.
something because their schedule is so in flux versus
Right.
that,
Right.
typically
Yep.
they could pinpoint an hour a month or two in advance because they're
Right.
so scheduled, they're so routine,
Right.
that this is really throwing it for a loop.
Yeah. That's great. It was early on in the shutdown. I think was in early March when I realized I was like, hey, God, everybody's at home, and it was early on, and nobody, whether they were still sitting there like, what's going on, and their minds were blown, and that was a great time. But then slowly, like you were saying, they the I think the paradigm, especially in the entertainment industry, they started realizing, hey, I need to shift my focus and start
Mhm.
doing virtual um, uh, auditions or practices or whatever, or doing what you just said, their own YouTube channel, so they keep presence out there
Yep.
for future jobs because they got to pay the bills too,
Mhm.
and other things. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how the complete paradigm has shifted, and it has immediately exploded with podcasts. People are like, hey, I got all this time at home now. I'm going to start a podcast because I feel that I need to connect to other people. And it's a great way to, number one, kind of fill my time, but number two, do something interesting.
Yeah, we've seen an uptake in social media. We've seen an uptake in
Yeah.
TikToks and YouTube videos, and
Yeah.
it. We learned it in the military. Complacency kills, adapt or die.
Right. Yep.
So in the entertainment industry, if you're not being talked about, good or bad, if you're not being talked about, you're forgotten. And
Yep.
so they have to figure out a way to constantly adapt and be out there and be talked about. So yeah,
Mhm.
Kevin Hart has like 3 different YouTube channels and a podcast and a thing and
Right.
like you have to adapt to the situation and keep yourself relevant. I don't envy those people that have to like, oh my God, how do I get my name in the papers today?
Right. Right.
Otherwise I'm out of work,
Well,
so
and that's why they hire people, right?
exactly.
Those folks hire people. They're publicists and PR folks, and they have a small team that
Oh yeah,
that they're constantly putting out press releases and hey, so and so ate a cheeseburger today, and do it. But
absolutely.
they're trying to stay relevant. They're trying to keep the name in circulation at
Yeah.
some level,
I used to bust balls so much. I'm like, how can a person have a social media team? How hard is it to take a
right?
picture that hamburger and be like, I ate a hamburger? Like, why do you need a social media team? And then I start doing this show, which is a once a week show, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm constantly on social media trying to promote, trying to excite,
Yes.
entice, and build numbers and like, oh my God, I get it now. I get
Yep.
it. It's a full full-time job. Just to be a social media manager or whatever, like that's a full-time gig.
Well, isn't that interesting that, we also see an uptick in that? A lot of people, a whole new shift in job paradigms too, like people that are creating, either they're managing like databases of podcast networks, so you can pitch your client to these. Hey, I know that Facebook is full of them. Like, you can be a guest on whatever podcast, or looking for guests. And so some of them are free, some have debt. Some people are managing databases of this show. Is you can be part of a directory paying a monthly fee, or whatever, and then also trying to pitch it across. So it's interesting you bring that up, because it has brought up just a fascinating time. And even though this time kind of sucks for a lot of people, it has created a tremendous opportunity for growth in a whole new way, right? And it's just like taking a piss over by a dumpster, and it's a shitty analogy, but yeah, it's not the right thing to do. But here's the thing: you're creating bacteria, you're creating a whole new environment for somebody else. So the thing is trying to make something good out of what somebody might consider a shitty situation.
Yeah, I mean, every major shift in history, there's fallout, positive and negative. You look at, we were just talking about 9/11 earlier, but you look at a moment like that where that changed everything, right? Security. Think about the amount of jobs that opened up in airport security because of that, right? TSA, companies that make metal detectors and X-ray scans, like that's a boom. I read somewhere where they said, if you were smart enough to like have stock in ribbon, red, white, and blue ribbon prior to 9/11, the stock prices soared because all of a sudden flags were everywhere.
Right.
Pre 9/11, you rarely saw a flag, maybe outside of a church, or not a church, like a library or a police station. Now it's on like every block, there's a flag. So any big shift, any big change in how our everyday lives are managed, it has ripple effects that that echo out.
And I think you summed it up nicely. You basically said adapt or die. And look at, and I know this is completely off topic, but look at Blockbuster, right? Nobody thought that mogul of a company was going to go out of business, but they did not adapt. They didn't adapt to the changing times. And here, I think there's still maybe one store in the entire United States, maybe, I don't know, but but they all went belly up. They all went away.
See, now you're speaking my language. That's pop culture. I mean, you asked me a year ago, I tell you that Disney is a company too big to fail ever. It's impossible. There's no way. They're so diverse. They're so into so many different things. Now COVID hits. All the parks are closed. All the movie theaters are closed. All the development studios are closed. Oh my God, they have no revenue source.
Right.
I read somewhere that at the peak they were losing like $40 billion a day or something like that. It's like crazy. And you start to hear these stories like, well, they might need to get bought out. Like Netflix might buy them, or Apple might buy them, or something.
Right.
You're like, wait, what? Disney, that owns Marvel, that owns ESPN, that owns Fox now. They had the big Fox merger. Like how? And it's because the landscape changes so suddenly, so drastically, that, I mean, nobody's too big to fail. Nobody.
Right. Well, then that's the thing. I think people need to wake up and say, and maybe not go around scared, but also say, you know what, don't get complacent. You brought the word up, and that's such a good word, because I think we get to what we consider a pinnacle in life, and we're like, now I can eat steak and shrimp every day, instead of scrounging for that peanut butter and jelly scraps, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, but guess what? We start getting complacent, maybe getting a little fat, lazy. And then all of a sudden, like we're talking now, the bottom falls out. Now what? Now what are you going to do?
Mhm.
It's like now you got to go back to scrounging for peanut butter and jelly scraps, and you've been used to eating steak and shrimp. Guess what? You better hustle your ass off and figure how do we shift?
Yep.
How do you shift your dynamic of what you do in order to meet the demand of today? Doesn't mean you're doing something completely different. It brings me to a point. I was following I can't even remember his name. He's a military veteran, and he was doing motivational speaking. I don't know what else he was doing on the side. And COVID hit, and where the opportunity, obviously, to go in person to
Right.
speak went away.
Traveling, all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, he was still keeping his presence, but at the same time, he was like, I have to pivot. I have to pivot hard because he's still got, bills to pay. And they
Sure.
went into, because right at that time, I think it was in the March, April timeframe, all these cleaning services came out where they come in and spray that whatever it
Mhm.
is. And where him and I think a partner or something went in and invested in this, and where they started this cleaning, this green, good for the environment, all this, and where they started this company, really small, and where they were, slowly growing it, but talking about where he had to pivot. And, it was just something that popped into my mind that, like, we're just sitting in a different time. And, like you said, every, major change in history, it's really no different. It's just a different event, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like, where do we go with that?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, um, what's new on the docket for Pop Culture Warrior? Maybe share with us some of if nobody has ever tuned into an episode, maybe some of the big highlight episodes that are most memorable, or kind of take us through that. I know everybody's probably watching this video looking at, all your knickknacks and everything back in the corner, and
Yeah.
you're like, that's some cool shit. I'd hate to dust it all. It's like,
Yeah, you just get a fan, you blow it
yeah,
over.
there you go.
No, yeah, the show's awesome. It's a great opportunity. We do Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's live, so if you can catch it live, it's awesome because it's very interactive. We have a call-in number; people can call in and talk, and all that they do all the time. We'll do like an hour where we're just catching up on what was the news of the week. Like next week, photos just came out of uh, 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 they're filming the Hawkeye series for Disney Plus, and so the first pictures came out. So we're gonna look at the picture and talk about what we
Nice.
see, and and gossip and
Sure.
speculate what it could be.
Sure.
Um, you know, uh, uh, Gaming news comes out. I don't necessarily do reviews, but I'll be like, hey, I picked up this game. I'm enjoying it. I like it, or it was all right.
Are you
Um,
a big gamer? Are you a big
Big
gamer?
gamer, big gamer.
Yeah.
I have my controller right here because I
Oh,
game.
there you go.
But no, yeah. So game, and if I go see, like, when I originally thought of the idea, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go see a Marvel movie. I'll get to talk about it on the show. Lo and
Sure.
behold, a Marvel movie hasn't come out since I started the show because of COVID.
Right.
But things like that. And then on occasion we have really great guests. We have I think this week we have a director coming on to talk about his project. And
Nice.
so we do that. We talk to actors, directors, comedians. We've had stunt guys on, a couple military advisors to
Okay.
both The Outpost and some other films. One of the guys that worked on Extraction. So we talk to all sorts of people in the entertainment industry. I'm working on getting some people from gaming, both the creative side of it, the creator side of it, but also streamers and people that stream professionally and get
Sure.
make money playing video games. How
Yeah,
cool is
right.
that? So it's been really cool. We in this year alone, we were nominated for a podcast award, an
Very
entertainment
cool.
podcast award. We didn't win, unfortunately, but
Well,
I mean, come on.
congratulations on the
Yeah,
nomination.
we made 10 people nominated for entertainment, and we were one of
Very
them.
cool.
So that's awesome. And then we even got reached out to by the Webby Awards, which is
Oh, what's
online.
that?
The Webby Awards are like it's basically an award show for things on the internet.
Oh,
So you can be a content creator, you could be a podcaster, you could be an animator, anything that's found on the internet.
huh.
Basically, it's the Oscars of the internet.
Huh.
And
Very
so,
cool.
yeah, so we're in the running. I think that's later in December. I think voting ends later in December or whatnot. But so for that stuff to happen, in the first year of what we're doing,
Right.
I mean, that means something. And then obviously, like I said, I work with the station, and they have other great shows. There's the Monday Report, and Sergeant's Time, and Friday Night Freedom, and all these great shows that are a
Right.
lot of fun, and we support each other. And we try to jump on with each other's shows, and we'll do stuff to promote each other, and have a
Right.
lot of fun. Yeah, it's just a good time, man. It really is. It's my
Try to
favorite
keep
part of
it
the week.
fun. Try to keep it fun and loose, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
yeah,
we literally we had such a I always kind of have show notes and kind of what I want to
sure.
talk about, and things, but we'll spin off all the time. This past week we were talking about shows that were coming out, and somebody in the audience had asked the question. They're like, "Well, what shows do you not like?" Because I'm such a positive guy. I'm like, I love everything. Like, well, what shows do you not like? So we started talking about that, and man, the chats were lighting up with shows. We got into this conversation of like, what's a show that everybody that you don't like? And so the chats start lighting up, and we're talking, and we're laughing, and then we're talking about, well, what's shows that were maybe not liked that you love? And yeah, it got it. We
Right.
whole side tangent, but we had a lot of fun with it. The audience really dug it. So it's
That
stuff
is
like that,
fun.
man. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
It's always interesting when we start talking about the different dynamics, what everybody likes, because somebody might like chick flicks, somebody, I know my wife absolutely loves like Hallmark movies, right?
Mm.
And all that, so many different genres, so whether it's action adventure, horror, whatever. What about, you talk about Disney Plus, or you talked about
Mhm.
Disney a little bit briefly. Have you done anything with the Mandalorian?
Oh, we talk about it
Anything?
all the time.
Okay.
I
have you
love it.
had have you had anybody from the Mandalorian on?
I'm working on it, man. I'm working
Okay,
on
so so
it.
we're gonna have a conversation after we're done recording
Ooh,
this, because I got a line for you that I know that add to your guest list.
hey, that's
So
how we do. A lot of my guests have come from recommendations of other people, so I
so
welcome any
yeah,
your listeners. If you know somebody, reach out to me, man, on social media. I take all, and I'm not like snooty in the sense where like, well, if they're not in a AAA big budget,
right,
then I don't want
right,
to talk to them. I've talked to comedians that literally work for like there's 5 people in the audience, but the
right.
idea is that no matter what level you're at, you're in the entertainment industry. I don't care if you're a juggler on the street. Your job is to entertain people. You have a story. I'm curious about your story. Obviously, it's always fun to entertain. Talking to Louis Anderson
I
for his
imagine.
30-something year career in movies and TV and
Isn't that something?
comedy, it was a phenomenal conversation. But I've had just as good with those local comedians who've never even traveled out of the state.
Right,
So
right.
it's awesome.
Cool. Is he a pretty good conversationalist? I'm sure he's done thousands of interviews, but funny the same as just throwing his little one-line zingers and everything in
Oh
there.
man, he's so funny, and he's kind of a charmer, man. Like he's
Yeah.
very good at making a connection with who he's talking to, who the audience is. I always try to do my best to be well researched
Right.
as an interviewer. Like I really want to show that like I took the time, regardless of your stature, that
Yep.
to know you, to know your work, and to we had a guy. Here's the thing: I'm not a business guy. I don't care about stocks or the financial market. Really don't care.
Yeah.
But we had a guy who was the director of this movie about the housing crisis,
Oh,
and
sure.
so I watched it. I watched the thing, and it turned out it wasn't one movie. It was like a 6-part like Lifetime series almost. It was
Oh,
like on the
wow.
History Channel. It was
Okay.
like 9 hours long, but I got hooked. It was actually I found it interesting. But and we talked about it. We talked about it, and I took the time, and every person that's come on the show has always gone like, "Oh wow, you actually did the research. Like you asked,
Right.
try to ask good questions."
Right.
But with Louis, man, we got into such a great conversation, and he was funny and he was charming, and then even afterwards, because at the 1 hour mark, or at the 2 hour mark, we take a short break. So as we took the break and we were talking kind of off camera, He's like, "Oh, I had such a good time. This was a lot of fun." I said, "Yeah, thanks, man." He's like, "Oh, really? Have me back anytime?" And this and this, that. I said, "Cool." And then he's like, "All right, we're gonna hang up now." And he's, I'm telling him like, "Okay, you can hang up now, so I can go back to the show and do the thing because we're live." And he goes, "Okay, bye." He goes, "Love you," mwah, and like hangs up on me. And I was just so stunned. It's such a strange thing, but obviously he's poking fun at me.
Right, right.
But yeah, it was just such a
I always leave them laughing, right? I always leave them
exactly.
laughing.
I came off the break and I was just I couldn't even compose myself because I was still laughing from that. But stuff like that is pretty cool.
Awesome. Awesome. That's so cool. Well, awesome. Where can they check out more about Pop Culture Warrior and more about you, man? Where can they check everything out at?
Awesome. Yeah, no, we've got lots of social media presence. The first thing I always say is check out WTF Nation Radio because I'm just one show of a dozen there, and they're all great shows. So WTF Nation Radio is available on every platform, every social media. Just search it, you'll find it. As far as Pop Culture Warrior itself, you can find this. We have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. You can find me on Twitter, WTF_CQ, or Pop Culture Warrior on Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, it's an awesome thing, man, and it's a great team of people. I love my co-host Radar for Pop Culture Warrior and all the staff at WTF Nation Radio. It's a lot of fun, and especially if you're a veteran, especially if you're military or veteran. I think you maybe heard of U.S. Army WTF Moments. It's like a huge Facebook page, 1 million plus. That's like a part of the WTF Nation family, so they're kind of part of what we do. So that gives you an idea of how silly we can be and how fun the shows are. But yeah, it's awesome, man.
Cool, cool. Well, my guest today is Micheal, or better known as CQ, with Pop Culture Warrior on WTF Nation Radio. Thank you so much, CQ. I really do appreciate you being on the show today. It does mean a lot, and we look forward to keeping tabs on you. And I also want to say, obviously, sounds corny, but thank you for your service. But thank you what you continually do. Entertaining everybody, but helping folks. You bring a little bit of light into everybody's week every time you shoot out your program. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun, and hopefully one day we'll get you on Pop Culture Warrior, man, and get you to tell your side of the story.
Absolutely, I look forward to it. All right.